So I just wanted to give you a final update on our fundraiser, which ended last night at midnight. It was by far our most successful fundraiser, so we cannot thank you enough for the tremendous amount of generosity. We ended up raising over $60,000 towards our $72,000 goal to pay off the mortgage on the building we call Karma House. So just want to thank you again. And just like our practice, fundraising is something we have to consider 365 days a year. So you might also consider making a monthly donation. But thank you for allowing us to continue this practice, to support this space, to support our teacher, Sokuzan, and our ability to continue to make our practice available. I don't think I can say too much more other than continued gratitude. Thank you. And I will turn it over to Sokuzan for his Dharma talk.
Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may happen to be. So this evening's talk is, because it is evening here, is titled, what is it titled?
How to practice Shikantaza meditation.
I thought we'd return to the foundation material, how to practice Shikantaza meditation. Very simple practice, not so easy to do. So I thought I would run through that again and respond to your questions. So to start with, all kinds of meditation practices. I've done a few of them, as I'm sure you have. Shikantaza is Japanese translation is just precisely this. Perhaps you all know. And this is trying to make it as minimal as possible. Just this, just precisely this. So whatever is arising in any of the six sense fields, the mind stream, that's your object of meditation. Totally personalized for you, because no one else is maybe witnessing or viewing or seeing, hearing, smelling exactly what it is that you are. A little bit different than the kinds of meditation where we're trying to maintain something to get more aware or become a better meditator or to become more mindful. I'm not disagreeing with that particularly, I just don't teach it. And if you want to learn that, there are other places to learn how to be more mindful or be a mindful meditator. The idea with Shikantaza is for you to see exactly, precisely what this is, not to be somebody else other than who you are. Who you are right now is being trained through Shikantaza to see what this is. So you don't have to check with me or anyone else. No authority. If there is an authority, you're the authority. So simply to go through it, the practice is find a place to sit. It might be in a monastery. It might be in front of a tree out in the woods. It could be almost anywhere. Somewhere where nothing is happening in front of you particularly. Not that the wind might be moving the leaves or something like that. That is possible. So some movement may be possible. Sit down, hold still, sit in a symmetrical posture. This is the mudra that I recommend, called the Cosmic Mudra, left over right with thumb slightly touching, forming an oval between your first fingers and your thumb. And there's nothing particularly holy, sacred, or special about it. It's just symmetrical. It's not something you casually do. So therefore, you are it increase because you're using you are using your body. You are increasing your intention, your mental direction, your intention to train your mind to sit down, hold still, watch what continues to move after you've come to stillness or relative stillness. You're still breathing, diaphragm still moving. Maybe your particular body moves slightly all the time in different ways. So it's not about struggling to hold so still that somebody's going to come along and wrap you on the back of the shoulder with a stick. That we can leave that in ancient Japan. It doesn't have to be here. Just as we have left ordaining nuns in Japan, we ordain monks and women. At least I do. So Cosmic Mudra, hold very still, sit symmetrical, keep your spine as straight as your particular spine that you're born with will allow you to do. Eyes are open, whatever's in front of you, whether it's a wall, a closet door, or a oak tree. Whatever it is, just observe. Sit about 20 to 30 inches away from it, possibly more if you get a little claustrophobic when you're up close. That would be up to you. Even in the Zendo, or in the meditation hall of the monastery, there's some breathing room there. There are places where you can sit where there's quite a bit of space in front of you. A lot of space in front of you. I recommend facing the wall, but it's not totally necessary if you would prefer to do otherwise. And so you are observing the breath coming and going, but you're not fixating on it and you're not trying to maintain it. So you just intend to watch what moves. If you see that moving, then you're observing that. So if there's a noise out in the hallway or down in the adjacent room, just observe, just receive that sound of that noise. And whatever arises in your mind, whatever that may be, as you're sitting there, anything that arises in your mind. Let me go back to square one. You're sitting very still. Your hands are in this posture. If this puts a strain on the back of your neck, which it will for some people, you could work with it several ways. One is get used to it. It will go away, perhaps. Or another way is to put a pillow under your hands to support that, so that the weight of the hands down like this are not pulling too much on the back of your neck. You can hold this mudra in your what's the Japanese called your hara center here. You can hold it up, which might help your posture. You can also just drop it down, and you can also practice what is called training the mind mudra. So just put it hands on knees. But this is more casual. So you can do this one. It's very definite. You're not going to do it casually. So this, every time you do this, the body-mind situation that looks like two separate things, there's some communication going on there, and you're helping with that by sitting in this way. Return to this. And the next day, return to this. Return to it. Return to it. And as you've heard me say many times, don't maintain it. This doesn't mean get up and leave. But you might want to look at the quality of what the mind is doing when you start to get anxious or irritable or whatever, or bored. Take a look at that. And then if you need to, move. Don't maintain it against something. That is not discipline. That is not discipline, forcing something. That's militarism and control, trying to control things to do what? To get results. Spiritual path is not about results, it's about intention. If you're looking for results, think of several things that you could do to get results. You could gamble, then you could either win or lose. Does that work? So the intention to train the mind, the intention to sit still and observe what continues to move, and the intention to not add to anything that's moving in the mind stream or in the room. No comment, no elaboration, no commentary. The difficulty with that, when I say don't do that, is of course you're probably going to do that. But what that does is by saying, don't add, don't subtract, don't divide. Don't make excuses for anything. Don't try to push something away or chop it to pieces or get angry about something particularly. And don't ignore it or distract yourself into something else. By that instruction, this is important. By that instruction, can I have your attention here? Here. By that instruction, it allows you to see the way the mind cannot do that. You cannot stop yourself from adding or commenting. And so therefore, the awareness is brought to the very difficulty itself. So, and the feeling of failing at that could be very strong. This is awareness. We're trying to get to know our own mind on a very, very deep level, not just the level of chatting with something about things we have been going on with us, nor even talking with our teacher about it. So don't add, don't subtract, don't divide. Don't do any math, don't do anything, add nothing to it. And then what happens? We see that we continue to add. But by putting a little tension on that, like don't add, then we see that what continues to add on to that is the very nature of dependent origination, which is a very simple and obvious and completely self-secret. When I say self-secret, it's so in our face that we cannot see what this is. Dependent origination. Very difficult to fundamentally see and understand. So we're sitting, holding this posture, and we're intending to just see whatever arises in the mind stream or the lawnmower going by outside our window, perhaps. Just observe, just receive. And when that comes up, notice the way the mind will add things on. Rather than just receive that as it is, as sound, as smell, as taste, as touch, as thoughts. We just receive it as thoughts. Instead, they're thoughts about something. They're thoughts about this. And then when those thoughts come up, then we generate more thoughts out of just the nature of consciousness, the nature of thinking. The fourth skandha will allow us to push against something or pull on something, shut down on something, elaborate on something. And the idea here is not to stop doing that, but to observe the way that occurs, the way that shows up, the way that something occurs and we think things about it. We add things onto it, which makes what actually occurred previously be obscured by our conclusions or ideas, our judgments, our evaluations, and so on. Thank you. Thank you. it is inevitable that we are going to meditate a lot and continue to look for some kind of progress, some kind of, am I doing better? Am I more clear? Do I have more insight into my difficulty? It's inevitable. And what do we do with that? Just receive it. Don't push it away. Again, don't fluff it up or add to it or elaborate on it or justify it or validate it. Just observe. Very difficult. This is why this is called a radical form of meditation. Just the opposite, in some ways, the same, but as it appears, it's opposite of creation completion stage practices of the tantric tradition, where we practice what's commonly called deity yoga, generate a meditation deity and identify with that, and so on, with mantras and mudras and so on. Did I miss anything? Probably have. So there's room for some questions. I really would like questions about Shikantaza as much as you can. Stay with that. But Toji.
When we're sitting in Shikantaza and it's not thoughts coming up, but just general noise.
Yes.
That there really is no room for commenting on it because it's just yes, noise.
I hear you. What's the question?
What do we do with that?
Just observe it. Just receive it. Excellent. You're not going to know about that unless you've done quite a bit of meditating. And so I say, just receive it. You named it noise, but I would go, name it noise, but then see if in your mind stream, if you can see what's just behind what you named. If it actually is noise, or if there's something else happening there that the word noise, the comment, or you could say judgment, to say something is noise, say if there's something else happening behind there, that you've actually put a label on it that stops you from seeing deeply what that is. This is the way the self-centered mind protects itself. Go ahead.
At the time that happens, I don't know that I'm labeling it anything. It's just doesn't seem to be room to do anything with it.
Okay, sounds good to me. Keep going. Just keep looking. Just look at the noise that you later on called noise. But when you're experiencing it, it's just whatever it is. You're not labeling it at that time. Am I understanding you correctly? At that time,
I told you about I'm too lost in it.
Oh, good. Good. Keep doing that. But look at the comment you just made. Too lost in it. More. We're always taking whatever arises and finding some way to separate ourselves from it. There's highly negative feelings that arise in the mind stream anytime that we just can't handle. We'll back out of it a little bit and call it depression. So at least we know what it is. It's depression. And I'm not saying it isn't depressing. Of course it is. But that's a cover-up for it. And the problem with a cover-up is it tends to give it a kind of hideout where you could even say, if you wanted to make it subjective, that it actually thinks it is something and thinks it's real and it will keep going because you're fighting with it. You're labeling it, you're pushing it, you're modifying it somehow. Modifying nothing. Don't meddle with your own mind, and then you won't meddle with the rest of the world.
Shikantaza bowing.
Shikantaza.
There was a question from Laura Cordero in the chat box.
Okay.
She asked, can you be in this posture literally on your back with your feet elevated by a chair, for example? In essence, you are then staring at the ceiling, bowing.
So I would say, if you have some kind of a chronic situation that's happening with your body where you can't sit in this posture, then yes, do that. The most important thing to remember about it is stillness, not the posture. I mean, though I'm starting out with sit symmetrical, who can do that? I can't even do it myself. I can do it for a few minutes. Eventually my back hurts, my knees hurt, You get irritated. So yes, if you can sit that, lay on your back with your knees up on a chair, like I'm understanding you to describe, and hold very still and look at the ceiling, that's what you're saying, then do that. Do that.
She isn't bowing. She said stillness. Great. Got it. Thank you. And then Sanho has a question, bowing.
Sanho bowing. I have two things for you. The first is, what is the difference between mindfulness and Shikantaza? Sanho bowing.
So mindfulness practice, as it's taught lots of different ways. If you listen to John Kabat-Zinn, or if you listen to anybody, I'm just mentioning his name because he's famous. Teaches all over the place, but not for free. Not for free. So it is about being mindful of something, being mindful of, and possibly even maintaining a mindfulness of an object of meditation. This is ancient. It goes back centuries. Nothing someone made up recently. And I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm saying if you need to do that, you go do it. Sometimes someone who comes as a student, I might even have them do some kind of a mindfulness practice for a while. I sometimes have people start out, if they're having a great deal of difficulty, closing their eyes for 10 minutes and possibly scanning their body. If somebody has a lot of anxiety going on, my thing I often say, I try, I don't always succeed, I try to meet people where they're at. If I didn't know who this was and what this was, I couldn't do that because I would get confused between what's happening there and what's happening here, which is what the nature of samsara is, duality. What's your other questions, Anna?
Thank you. And I just wanted to say regarding this topic and regarding all of your teachings, thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. And so, Shikantaza, to go on with the contrast, one is a maintenance kind of situation, of maintenance of some kind of a meditative stability, or of being very aware of what's happening. Sometimes, if you're with somebody who is into mindfulness and you're into mindfulness, you're all practicing mindfulness, and you bump into something, they might even say, "You should be more mindful." Heard that said before. Good. Not wrong. It's just relatively. Relatively, it's totally correct. But we're looking at trying to find out who this is, who you are fundamentally who you are, so that when you go towards anything, you are fearless. You go towards your own death, you're fearless. Your partner goes towards their death, you're fearless. You're not haunted by that kind of situation. You see what it is. Is there another question? Okay, then I'll say a little bit more on Shikantaza. Shikantaza is different from mindfulness practice in the way it's conventionally taught. I'm not saying there aren't ways of teaching mindfulness that might be closer to Shikantaza, but I use that term Shikantaza because that's the Japanese tradition. But each person using that word might teach it differently. The way I teach it is sit down, hold still, just observe. Whatever's moving, observe. Even if something's standing still, observe. Just observe. Another word that I use all the time is just receive. Ultimate, in a relative sense, of course, form of generosity is just give everything your attention. Everything. Don't ignore anything. Can you do that? Find out. Find out if you can. Find out if you can just be on receive from everything all the time. Your whole world is coming towards you. Don't miss your life by going, I like this, I don't like that, I like this, I'd rather be doing this, they should have been doing that, they shouldn't have done that to me. Why did my parents treat me that way? We all have some of that going on. Maybe not. It's kind of extreme that I'm showing up in my mind at the present time. So by watching what is moving, use the image of a blade. It's like the thoughts that come and go. If the thoughts come and go, come and go, come and go, and you're tracking some and pushing on some and pulling others, enhancing some, pushing some down, helping some up, being triggered into this and that story about whatever, then just be aware of that. Be aware of that. And if you don't do anything with it, if you don't correct anything, you don't validate anything, you don't ignore anything, passion, aggression, and ignorance, you eventually begin to see fundamentally what this situation is of being a living being in an apparent three-dimensional world with other apparent living beings. You see right at the foundation of the whole situation. You begin to see yourself, not just study the teaching of dependent origination, pratitya samutpada, which is written about everywhere, and talked about everywhere, taught in different ways, in different directions, different understandings. You actually see it yourself, and you recognize it. And then you look at the teaching, pratitya samutpada. That's what they're talking about. That's what the Buddha is talking about. You're looking at what the Buddha is talking about yourself. You don't need to come and check with this old man. And you probably wouldn't. I mean, you might. I doubt it. You just see what this is. It's called getting your own authority. You don't need any other authority other than your own wisdom. This doesn't give you the right to abuse anyone, to step into anybody's territory, push anybody around to be some kind of a dictator. It doesn't give you any rights at all in that sense. Shikantaza. More questions? You?
Question from Chris Smith. Can you give a brief history on this practice?
No.
How do we keep going when it feels like things are getting worse?
That's how you keep going. If it's a mundane path, things are going to get better because you just get better and better and better at doing everything. Better at playing music, better at singing, better at computers, better at riding a bike. I'm getting really good at riding a bike. Better at riding a motorcycle. I remember how many times I had to fall off a motorcycle hill climbing before I finally found that you should not leave the motorcycle. Serious. It would go up and it would be airborne, and I would just freak out and I would just let go. But I didn't want to be with that chunk of steel when it fell sideways. Practice, practice, practice. Mundane things you actually can improve on, but the spiritual path is not about improvement. And don't misunderstand, I'm not saying that you read Atisha's 7 Points of Mind Training, those 59 slogans are all about trying to help you in that way. But if you're listening to me, you don't need that. You're ready to see this yourself, or you wouldn't be here. You're ready to see this directly. If some of those slogans support you, by all means use them. I read those, and some of them I think are helpful. Like, be a child of illusion. Remember that there's no way you can really know fundamentally what this is. Knowing that you can't know what it is wisdom. The continued search for what it is samsara.
Is there a point where that stops? Do we run out of worse?
Run out of worse? Have you run out of worse? Run out of bratwurst? You know, of course, it's something that's arising in your life, in your consciousness, and sure, it could change. It could go any number of directions. But if you practice enough over a period of time, there's no guarantee. But eventually, what can come about is you won't care. It's not that you enjoy having negative feelings, but your understanding is about the nature of dependent origination, pratitya samutpapa, the nature that feelings don't arise without cause, and not just one cause, but all kinds of causes. And then even the idea of a self arises as it's caused by fear, it's caused by hope for something better, something else, something other than what's here. Fear of what's here, fear of the darkness, fear of the unknown, fear of oblivion, in other words, fear of death.
Is there something that's not caused that we can perceive?
Any ideas?
And sometimes it just feels like the difficulty isn't coming from anywhere, and so I'm wondering how to work with that.
You're doing it. Just that statement tells me you're doing it. Difficulty is not coming from anywhere. This is the leading edge of seeing dependent origination. Can't find a source for anything. Even people who get depressed, and I'm not saying every situation of someone being depressed is, I'm going to explain it. There could be all kinds of reasons for someone feeling. Could be what they're eating, could be their genes, could be heredity, could be Lyme's disease, could be any number of things could be happening. But when we're talking about training the mind, we're saying that as you practice, you'll find less and less availability of some kind of explanation for whatever you're feeling, and you won't mind. You won't drop what you're feeling or seeing or smelling or tasting or experiencing for what it's about. You won't abandon what shows up in front of you. Shikantaza. You won't abandon it. You train yourself to see clearly. So when you get off the cushion, what we call post-meditation, that same objectivity, you could call it that. Just not really, you could say, taking anything particularly personally, even the things you feel. So there's not something you can do and practice so much. It just starts to come about through just not pushing, pulling, or looking away. The difficult thing about it, what makes it really difficult, is you never know if that's happening. You don't get a credential, so you don't arrive at the station called enlightenment. There is no place called enlightenment. But there's a couple of other places. One of them is called suffering, which is the ground of the threefold logic, and the next one is called the path, and the next one is called fruition. And fruition on this path has no identification, can't see it. It's not a thing. It is beyond phenomena. It's beyond cause and effect. You believe a word I say. Find out yourself. Yes.
Question from Tom McCauley. You've done a lot of different types of meditation over the years. Do you think those helped you when you came to Shikantaza?
I started with Shikantaza, first of all, with Katagiri Roshi in Minnesota. So probably you can't take something out and say, oh, this, if you took this out, the whole thing collapses. I needed that experience of having being in a zendo and having somebody steal my wallet and realize that people steal things, even religious people. So you can't really take something out. And I would say probably everything helped. But the way I see it after all these years, the way I see it is anyone that I'm talking to that's functioning as a student of mine, even if somebody that I don't even know they're a student, they just listen to what I say. I'm saying that my understanding is from what I see. Not everything I've done. I've done a lot of practices that I don't teach. That if you train your mind to see what is arising in the mind without grasping, rejecting, or shutting down passion, aggression, and ignorance, bring that to a minimum. And we do that by bring it to a minimum by watching how much we have no control over. Can't control the mind. You can control the body. Raise my hand, lower my hand so far. So we have a very definite feeling of controlling things, and that's why we're so identified with the body, because that's an area we can't control. But you can't control your mind. You can't just be happy. Well, there's a few drugs that'll help you do that, maybe. There's a question in the chat box. I can't see it. Can someone read that?
She's unbowing. There's two of them. Yu Hong asks, what makes one feel so scary to see and not to see? Bowing.
I think it's just, if you ask what makes that, it's the belief that there is someone who is threatened. The belief that there is someone who can be wrong, or someone who can be wrong and everybody will know, or a fear that you're going to do all this work and you'll never really understand what this is for yourself. You'll always be dependent on other people for explanation of what it is, what your life is about. Just a couple of versions of that. But it also is I guess we use the fancy word, existentially scary, because we don't really know who we are or what this is. And most of the world is just covering that up and just making assumptions. Well, I work in a stockyard, or I drive a truck, and I have 3 kids and a wife that's divorcing me, and we have all of our stories that it's not that they aren't relatively true, they fill up our lives with these reference points. And we tend to use those to solidify ourselves, pardon my speech tonight, solidify ourselves so we don't have to look in the dark corners that the ego mind does not want to see. And this path will take you right into those corners. This is why you need a structure like the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, the teacher, the teaching, and the community. We need to do this together. I would not be here presuming to teach the Dharma without the 3 jewels, without the teacher, 2 of them. Actually, more than that, if I bring in His Holiness the 16th Karma Law. And the teaching, what is being taught, everything is dependent on the risen. Nothing comes from its own side as an individual person. It's an illusion. And it's a powerful illusion. And even when you see it's an illusion, it still keeps hammering at the door, saying, no, I'm real. This is real. I'm real. This is really happening. You're really experiencing this. You're real. You're real. You're really, something's really going to happen to you. You better get it together. So study the Dharma, study the structures that, down through the centuries, that beings who have realized their true nature, or at least understood the concepts, like Vasubandhu or the Sangha, Sekito Kisen, Tozen Rokai, or Dogen Zenji, the founder of our particular sect of Buddhism, Soto Zen. And then, of course, the Sangha, the community. Quite often that's, in the West, that's not really, doesn't really hang together too well. There's too much connection with all kinds of socializing and everything. I'm not against that at all. I like to socialize. But it seems to be a strong need for the community, the people, like we're all together here on Zoom, and we're here in the monastery, to look at this material together. Either take the Lankavatara Sutra and study it together, read it over and over again. I think it's Lanka, we just started that again. And we've been through it. This is our 3rd time or 4th time. third time through that sutra. This is the sutra that Bodhidharma brought from India to China. It is rumored. I don't know what he did. I don't even know if there was a Bodhidharma. It doesn't matter. It matters that the lineage of the Buddha is alive. And it's 2,500 years old, if not more.
Geez, I'm buying. There was another question
Go ahead.
from Slav or Steve. He asks, how strong is awareness is must be? Bowing.
Can you read that again?
I think there might have been a slight typo. It says, how strong is awareness is must be?
Okay, so how strong must awareness be? I guess that's what it would be. So the idea here, the way I sometimes set it up to try to explain it, is the thought process is thinking is a part of awareness, just like the awareness, the function in your kidneys or in your digestive tract. That awareness is doing that. It's awareness that as I'm talking causes me to talk with my hands. So it's awareness that is doing all kinds of things that we're not consciously tracking. If Chazan, for example, if you stand right next to Chazan and have a spoon or something like that and drop it, he'll catch it before it hits the floor, because not because he's so smart, it's just because he's so quick and he likes baseball. So some people have that kind of reaction. And is that some kind of intention? Yeah, the spoon is falling, it's going to hit the floor. I think I could probably catch it. No, it's without thought. It's awareness. It's just bare attention to whatever is moving. And of course, pretty good reflexes there and control over your fingers. So the way I would go further on that is to say that the thought, because of fear, because of hesitation, because we're not sure who we are, what we're doing, we need to get our authority or our validation from society or from the world or from our clan or from the Moose Lodge or something, or from the U.S. Marine Corps, which I was in for 4 years. Not a good place to get your identity from, even though it's bragged about all the time. So what happens is, when you are threatened in any way, instead of the awareness coming out, instead of the awareness leading, which is what I think you're asking about, instead of your awareness being out here leading and have a willingness to not know and to be vulnerable all the time. Instead, the samsaric mind, or the conventional mind with no mind training, brings the thought process out and defends itself. There's awareness there, but the awareness is secondary to the thinking process. This doesn't mean that the thinking process doesn't have thoughts or doesn't have awareness in it. Of course it does. And the very nature of thinking is awareness with sharp corners. So the idea is that through the sitting practice of meditation, the awareness, you don't have to have more awareness, just awareness needs to be prioritized. So you lead your life with your awareness. You lead your life so much with your awareness, that you don't even know what you're aware of. That everything is completely new all the time. Every time you see somebody that you've known forever, or you've known for 3 weeks, totally new person all the time. Very similar to watching a child grow. They're very young, they're a little helpless little baby, and then they start to get less and less helpless and more demanding. There's nothing really static there. There's constant changing all the time. Impermanence. So, but the idea through sitting practice of meditation through Shikantaza, one's awareness, because you're emphasizing the awareness of what's moving, not just what's moving. It looks like you're emphasizing what's moving, but not so. What's being emphasized is the space in which the thoughts, emotions, memories occur. And how do you emphasize the space? Is by no allegiance to anything. No joining anything, no refusing anything, and no ignoring anything. As it says in the sutra, picking and choosing is the disease of the mind. Picking this over that over that. Does this mean that you can't choose the color of your Cadillac? People drive Cadillacs these days. Is black a color?
Question from Lydia.
Lydia.
Sometimes when I'm sitting, I realize that I have been thinking, but not paying attention. Should I be paying attention to my thoughts?
Good question. Shikantaza. Sit down. Sit in a symmetrical posture and observe. And it sounds to me like you are practicing Shikantaza, and there's no shoulds there. If you don't do anything with it, I mean, you ask me the question, so I'm responding in a way to say, yes, you're doing it. You don't have to pay attention to your thoughts. Because you can't help but pay attention to your thoughts eventually. If you try to pay attention to your thoughts, then we're right back to mindfulness practice and trying to control something and try to be somebody who's aware of their thoughts. Not interested in teaching that and causing you or anyone else to go in circles and charging you a fee. What I'm interested in is I'm endeavoring to point at something that I'm looking at all the time, and it shows up as the Buddha's Dharma. If you're interested, then do this. Sit down, return to the wall, return to the Buddha, return to the Dharma, return to the Sangha.
Question from Chris Smith again. Problem solving, is this different than any Dharma teachings?
What kind of problems you got, Chris? I'll solve them for you. I'm always happy to solve anyone's problems. You all know that. Right? Only the people who are in here, monks, they're wearing the prison garb, the monk. So, not to make light of it. I mean, problem solving, it just involves looking at the particular structure that you're in, whether it's relationship issues or job, or should I leave this job, or what should I do here? Anytime you have a should I, shouldn't I, or either or, stop, hold still, and just watch the movement, because it won't stop shifting around. But at some point, it probably will be obvious what you should do, especially if you don't meddle with it. And there's no way I can solve your problems particularly. A lot of sitting meditation, no guarantee, but a lot of sitting meditation will help you get a different view of what the problems are, and might have a better, less blaming in there, blaming of yourself, blaming of your coworkers or your partner, or less blaming and more a deep understanding of what everyone is going through as human beings. Even people who are extremely rude or mean are covering up fear, more than likely.
Bowing. If we're laminated onto what our feelings are about, is there a way to bring it back to the feeling?
I think so. I don't know if you can so much bring it back, but if it's some kind of an ongoing situation, then the next time that shows up, you can keep it to a minimum, keep the addition, keep the frosting that you want to put over everything to make it look different, sweeten it up, whatever you may be doing. Since you're already asking the question, that means you're already working with that dynamic somewhat. Yes.
To use that image, it seems like I don't see the frosting being put on. It's like I'm not aware of it until it's in my face and the frosting's already enticing.
Okay. Question.
how do I see the basic texture of that?
You're seeing it. It's just that you're seeing it. What's extra is you want results. You want to be able to do something about it. No, just see it. Just observe. Just witness it. To use a more conventional term. Just witness what is happening. In one sense, it is none of your business. In another sense, it's absolutely your own body-mind that is operating there. But the more any of us can just observe what happens, just watch what happens, be with what's happening, a phrase I don't use too often, the more likely we're able to see the underlying structure of it and see if there is a possibility of moving into that. And it fundamentally, capital F, fundamentally helping the situation without being a nuisance based on your thinking you know everything and you know how to solve everyone's problems, or you know more about the situation than anyone else, but doing it somewhat impulsively.
So bowing. When that situation comes up on the cushion, it seems to be easier because at least I'm sitting, at least I'm doing that about it.
Yes.
How do I work with the difficulty when I'm off the cushion?
How are you doing it now?
Complaining about it?
Stop complaining. That should be easy to do. With all the willpower you got. So, but at least register that something occurs, that's happening, and then you have a complaint about it. The complaint is extra. The complaint actually stops you from seeing what that is fundamentally.
What is. Seems like I can not hook up my vocal cords, but the complaint still shows up here.
Okay.
Is there a way to not complain more fundamentally?
Maybe you should complain. Maybe you should take it the other way around and go the other and deliberately fluff the whole thing up a little bit to see if you can see more clearly what it is you're doing. This doesn't mean that you are mean to somebody, that you or mistreat somebody. I'm not saying that, even yourself. But work with the energy and such in a way that you're looking for the fundamental nature of the situation rather than right and wrong. We get trapped in right and wrong, correct and incorrect all the time. Difficult stuff. Welcome. Whatever arises in the mind stream, whatever arises to you, any of you on Zoom or any of you here in the monastery, needs to show up. When I say needs to, it isn't like it has its own little needs, but it's like it's dependently arisen. So everything that is arising is dependently arisen. Even these words are dependently arisen. What's different about it? Find out. Find out yourself. You're not going to believe anything I say anyway. I'm even telling you all the time, don't believe what I say. Why? I want you to see this. As I've said before, I don't mean to be sarcastic, but I don't need any followers. I'm not going anywhere. I don't need followers. I don't need students. But if you present yourself as a student, I'm all about teaching you with your permission.
Jeez, I'm bowing. There's a question from Jonah in the chat box. He asks, how has your training with Trungpa, mixing mind with space, informed your practice of Shikantaza?
Same thing. You can't know about that unless you've read quite a bit of Trungpa's teaching. So my response to you is same thing. Mind and space are not two different things. So fundamentally, you can't even mix them. If you know what this is, there's nothing to mix. The path quality is mixing mind with space, but the fruition is nothing happens. No mud, no lotus. Like that. Is that Kurt? Oh, it was Kurt. Yeah, that was Kurt. Go ahead.
Another question from Tom McCauley.
Tom McCauley, yes.
What should we do when things get too fast and vague to observe during Shikantaza? I try to just see the confusion and not add anything. That leaves me feeling dumber and crankier than usual. Is that normal?
Well, everything's normal to start with. So not knowing exactly everything about what's happening, all the various situations that you're involved in, I would say get up off the cushion and go take a walk. Don't try to force some kind of control or peacefulness, or if you're upset, or might be better off to go do something else. Go look out the window, go for a walk, go have some ice cream. That's not an escape. If you're a meditator, your intent is to train your mind. This doesn't mean that you have to bully yourself into submission somehow. It just means set up a form, or use the form of like we do here in the monastery. If you come here, you use the form that's here. But there's no enforcement of anything like there is some places. The form is here for you to observe, not to obey. Big misunderstanding. So, you probably have a form of your own. The Tom? No. Tom, you probably have a form of your own that has some kind of structure. I would say you might want to lighten up a little bit. Lighten up in some ways, tighten down in other ways. Like the 4-hour block set that people do sometimes on Thursdays together in the monastery, morning and afternoon. The gong strikes, and you sit for 4 hours. And then if the gong strikes again, you get up and go have lunch. In the afternoon, the gong strikes, you sit down for 4 hours. And then the gong strikes, and then you go have supper. And what you do between those two gong strikes is a movement. It's either movement of mind, if you're holding very still, of your mind stream, observe that. And if you get up and go to the bathroom, observe that movement. You don't need a specific walking meditation. We don't teach that here. You don't need walking meditation to train your mind. You just need to watch movement. And it can either be the movement that when you're sitting still, or it can be the movement of getting up and in that 4-hour block set, walking to the bathroom, going to get a beverage, or going out in the backyard and spying on the neighbors. Further questions? Yeah.
Does Shikantaza give us permission for our practice?
What do you mean by permission?
Is there an aspect of Shikantaza that gives us permission to look, just like when you're talking about whether we have permission to respond to somebody, do we have permission to respond to ourselves through Shikantaza?
I think that's, the way I'm understanding your question, yes, you come in and the form is there, you have a teacher, you have a structure, have a timekeeper. You don't have to do anything, you just come in and just observe the form. So I'm not sure where you're going with the permission part, but once you sit down, you have permission to watch what moves. And you can also, you have permission to add on to what moves, or subtract from it, judge it, or be upset with yourself. There's nothing to live up to. It's an odd kind of way of saying it, but nobody's to blame for anything. Doesn't mean there isn't a lot of responsibility. A big difference between blame and responsibility. Further questions? Go ahead.
question from Chris Smith. Is it okay to be impressed with your own awareness, or does this create problems?
Well, that's all okay. You know, you're going to be impressed with, you know, I'm constantly impressed with just how erudite I can be. Aren't you guys? No. I wouldn't worry too much about being impressed, or let it all hang out. Be genuine. If you're trying to correct that kind of stuff, ego feeds off from that kind of, I'm not gonna look self-important. Ego feeds off from that kind of modification of how we appear, so that we don't look that way, not only to others but to ourselves, and convince ourselves that we're not impressed with ourselves. So yeah, be impressed. It won't last. Nothing lasts. If you think you're realized, you think you're enlightened, I'm not saying you're not, but probably won't last. Anything else? Any other questions? Anyone on Zoom that has a question, you can make a motion, or some other motion. I'll call on you.
Jeez, I'm behind. There was another question from Slav.
No.
He asks, mindfulness meditation and Shikantaza are training awareness, but what's the difference between the two? Bowing.
So my understanding, a simple way of putting it, and there are mindfulness practices that are very close to Shikantaza that people teach. And there are Shikantaza practices that are more like a mindfulness, or like a Shine practice, or a Shamatha Vipassana, that kind of practice. So my way of talking about it is saying mindfulness practice is about creating a person who's mindful, creating an awareness that is aware, someone who is aware, someone who is alert. So it's more of an identity. If you're soaking in a practice that will give you a stronger identity as someone who is stable, mindful, clear, not easily affected by anything, quite above everything. It might not particularly look uppity. Might even look, they might have it down in such a way that they actually start to look humble. You ever met really, really humble people? There's something really suspicious about that. They're really humble. Yeah, look really close. You might not be able to detect that except through your nose. So the difference is, mindfulness is about a control situation. And again, I'll say it one more time. I'm not saying it's always that way. Some people are teaching a form of meditation, calling it mindfulness, and it's much more like Shikantaza, much more open. Shikantaza is holding everything still that you can without struggle, the body, and watching what continues to ramp up the mind. Don't interfere. Just observe. It's like standing on the bridge, watching the water flow under it, or looking at a pond and seeing the fish swim. Those fish are your thoughts, and they're none of your business. If you think they're your business, then you'll fight with your world, and you may win relatively, and you may fail, but nothing lasts, and we're one of them. So, some differences. The idea with Shikantaza is that you're training your mind to see what moves and watch what moves, so that the awareness in which that which moves is, the awareness is like the sky, and that which moves are like clouds. And what you're doing by not interfering with the clouds, a good cloud, bad cloud, I don't want to have this kind of a cloud, then the awareness, the attention, the understanding of the nature of the sky is very much like the nature of the mind, without particularly being manipulated or controlled or seduced by thought patterns, no matter how horrible they are. This kind of stability is not about maintaining anything. This kind of stability is a stability that is In the Tibetan tradition, it's called the Vajra-like Samadhi. Vajra means indestructible, and Samadhi means not to. Other questions? Good.
Question from Spool String in the UK.
Spool String, you're still around. Spool String, tell me a little bit about yourself. That's my question for Spool String. But first I'll answer Spool String's question. And then Spool String, you got to tell me what's up with you. What's happening with you? Why do you have a name like that? And is Spool your first name?
Question. When I asked a question that sounds like a stain on the effort of meditation, however, why do I lose the clarity I have when sitting a lot if I sit slightly less often?
Spool String. A Spool String in the UK. That's the problem. Too far away. I can't get to them. So reflect on this. Clarity is not about the feeling of being clear. Clarity is about the clarity of being clear about the confusion. It's not about clarity, although that may apply at some point. But the path is about seeing more and more how confused and how obstructed and how warlike and how much polarity is happening in the mind stream relative to hope and fear. I want it, I don't want it, shouldn't be, it should be. Constant argument. To become very clear about that without stopping it, without validating it, without ignoring it. Passion, aggression, and ignorance. This is the clarity of the Buddha. The Buddha did not awake, as you heard me say before, and others too, did not awaken to wonderful flower gardens and parks and harmonious world, some kind of heaven realm. He awoke to his own suffering and that of the world. And he, as far as we know, the first words out of his mouth is, life is suffering. It's not a negative statement. It's realistic. And then he said the cause is wanting something else, wanting something different from whoever's there. We don't want that. We want something else. Or we want that, but we want it to be a little bit this way, a little bit that way. And then, of course, the third noble truth, that's the first two, is cessation, or that can come to an end. And the training to do that is Shila Samadhi and Prajna, meditation, awareness, and wisdom. Spool String, now answer my question. Who are you? Saying. So Juncha is sitting here looking at her phone, waiting for you to say, what's up? What up, Spool String? I really like that name. So I thought Spool String was a guy, and then I had somebody said, no, I think it might be a woman. Didn't you say that, or was it something? We don't really know. Man? LGBTQ. Are they using an X at the end now? Who knows? Anyone know things like that? You can see I'm not going to get any help from you guys. Further question while we await Spool String's autobiography. Are we good then? Shikantaza, totally clear? Senchu. Yes.
Is there a way that we can practice? Is there a way that we can practice seeing perception?
Yes, to see perception only, or seeing that subject and object are not two different things, like it's taught in Vasubandhu's 30 verses, one of the places. to see that, look at the objects. And don't add to them, don't subtract from them. Whatever thought arises in your mind, whatever car rolls down the road, no addition, no subtraction, no ignoring. Start with it in the mind, and then you're able to actually do that out in the world. You see that what you're looking at is not separate from that which is perceiving it. It's called perception only. Yogacara teaching.
Talked about the perceiver and perceived collapsing into perception. What is the collapsing?
The polarity of gone, the duality of this and that, or you and me, or anyone and any other, or any you and the world is a big duality. And the perception, the assumption that I'm over here, and you're over there, and that we're fundamentally separated. It looks that way. The fundamental situation is it's not two. So that perception respects the separation that is involved in relative truth. You're still over there. I'm still over here. I don't come and take your money away because it's not separating. There's no support to enter anyone's territory through perception only. But you actually see that the foundation is not separate. So this is where another way that this is taught as an image is everyone has been your mother. Down through history, all the beings that you've had, everyone has been your mother. So that works well unless your mother was kind of mean to you. That doesn't work so good. Further question? Yes.
We've got some information about spool string.
Did somebody else send it?
No.
Oh. Is it from spool string? Okay, what do we find out?
Hello, my name is Tom, 43, Scorpio, equal anger and love, male. I like kung fu. Spool string is like puddle and clouds. Been meditating 20 years. Life has been difficult. I keep going. I love you guys.
All right. Well, that was pretty good. Short style. Well, I could do that quickly. Very good. Well, we love you too. At least I do. And I think there's a few other people that love you. Don't take us for granted, though. Right? Further, take another question. I don't know where we're at as far as time. I don't have a watch anymore. I just wear these things. Anybody know? That's late. Are we done then? Yeah, we're done. We're done. Okay, we're done.
May the bear this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize Buddha's way. Sokuzan, the 10 directions of the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Paramita.
down out of the light to protect Sokuzan Buddhist Temple Monastery. Our Sangha families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and build